about Tweet Film Tuesday and how that...
Well, that's all Gundy. You're going to have to talk to him about that, but it's been pretty neat. A lot of people have sent in film. They've watched a lot of film.
In this day and age with recruiting, can you really find... Are there really people
Yeah,
who are...
you can.
hidden
Yeah,
in the rocks?
there are. Or, you know, you just might be intrigued by somebody that shows up. And see, it's not necessarily that they're totally under the rocks. It's that, development of kids is different. Some kids don't develop until late. You know, Mike Remmers is playing in the NFL right now, and nobody recruited Mike at all out of high school, and he was 6'5", about 215, but he was athletic, and so his development was just different than everybody else's, and so he wasn't a prospect built in at the time, and he wasn't necessarily that much of a reach because he was athletic, and you had to hope, the projection had to be in, will he get big enough? So, you know, there's all sorts of stories, and there are still, to this day, there are guys that are really, really good players that people don't know that.
Is there anyone on this roster that you found from either them sending you tape of themselves or even a fan sending one of your assistants, Coach, I think you should look at this guy?
Well, we've had some fans tell us about for sure, two of the leading tacklers in our conference, Tyreek Zimmerman and Jabril Johnson from Oklahoma. Had a friend tell us about him. You know, he familiar with the area and says, hey, you should look at these guys, and we did, and they both came, and I'd say that was really good for us.
But that wasn't a coach or anything?
No.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Mike, I heard it with the tweet film. Gundy was saying that you also had some people having some fun with it, sending videos of them like eating chicken wings or something like that, having some fun with the film.
I'm sure they do. You should talk to Gundy about that. I'm not familiar with all the stories, Steve, so don't ask me too much more about that, okay?
So this week you're playing a team that also is a big believer. Shaw's a big believer in having a special teams coach solely.
Yeah.
It's you guys, Stanford, and I think there's one other in the Pac-12. But you have been a big believer in having a guy solely dedicated to special teams for a long time.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, you know, it's such a, people lip service it a lot of times and say, hey, it's one of the third wheels to the game, and it's just as important as everything, but they don't give it a full-time coach. And you know, if it truly is that big of a deal, which I know that it is, it's comforting to know that you have somebody that's thinking about it all the time. You know, if your tight end coach was also responsible for your kickoff return, it's his second job. So he's going to do his tight end stuff, go to the tight end meetings, and then sometime when he can fit it in, he'll put the kickoff return together. So I've always thought that a guy that makes it his most important job, you know, that's the guy we want doing it. And the other thing that people don't realize about special teams coaches, he coaches 7 teams. He coaches kickoff return, punt return, field goal, and field goal block, and then the hands team that gathers together at the end of the game to try to recover the onside kick. So he's coaching 7 teams. He almost is coaching every guy on your team in some special teams area. So that's a big job. Doesn't that sound like a big job? So I don't want, you could divide it all up and we would be fine, and you could do it that way, but especially, I think it's not a good idea if you don't have the right guy, you know, because then it's like, well, you know, I could do it just as well. But with Bruce, I got a comfort level because I know the commitment, the knowledge, the time spent, it's always there.
You said the other night on the conference call that Cyril, you know, he had a really good day Saturday on special teams, and that you thought he had played well on special teams up before that, which gives you an indication of when someone's going to be a player. Mm-hmm. Who else on this roster that starts on offense or defense had been really good on special teams early?
Murph, Zim, Rashad, Michael Doctor, that's where he broke in. DJ was awesome. He was the best kickoff cover guy around, probably. I could probably go on and on. Tron Ward is still that guy. You know, I think a team is made up of veteran players that have to do well and that have to be good examples and willing to do all sorts of stuff. Dylan Wynn, you don't see too many defensive linemen on kickoff teams, you know. So here's a willing guy, very able, and he's a starter. But he does that because he's good at it, and he's showing everybody he's going to do more.
Coach, how much is Storm going to be a factor in the screen game again against Stanford? I mean, he's been a big part of that recently. Is that going to be the same thing?
Well, you know, we'll see how the game plays out. You know, I don't know if we'll get what we'll get. You know, we have to kind of start playing the game, and we always have all of our parts ready for the game, whether it's a screen or a draw or an angle pass or all of our running game, and then you kind of see what you're getting and what you got to deal with, and start playing the game.
Mike, this week we talked yesterday, or we talked all week about the front seven of Stanford, how much pressure they put on the quarterback. Your pass protection's been pretty good all season long. Probably the toughest test this week.
Yeah, we're facing the best team we've seen, the best athletes we've seen, and they're also, they're old. I mean, they're seniors across the board on this team, you know, and that's you know, there's a lot of experienced football players that are good players there, so it's going to be a good test.